In Walmart's Who Newville, joy started to grow. For online-only savings sure to steal the show. Tech treats and toys so dazzling and new. Walmart Cyber Monday deal soon ready for you. It's online only with very little time to spare. December 1st will soon be here, so be sure to be there. The Who's are prepared. Are you ready too? A day packed with savings. Amazing! Who knew? Subject to availability, terms and fees apply.
Get your mother-loving ears on because your big-time radio DJ's got news. PayPal lets you choose how you want to pay for all the stuff. With PayPal, I can pay in-store, pay online, or pay over time. What's that? You want this translated into song? I hope you're sitting down. You can pay your own way. You keep those ears on, you hear? Don't just pay, baby. PayPal.
Learn more at paypal.com.
Hey there, Duke fans. Welcome to episode 775 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. This is coming to you on Monday, but we are recording this late on Sunday, November 30th, which marks the 43rd anniversary of the greatest album that has ever been produced, Thriller, Michael Jackson's Thriller. And as your host, Donald Wine, I also was born on that date. So
yeah, I was going to say, there's something. I thought you were going to tout your own horn. I didn't realize you were going to do the whole Michael Jackson thing.
I will forever share a birthday with Thriller, and I am damn proud of that. Thriller and I were born on the same day, 43 years around the sun. Feels pretty good, Jason. But Jason.
Wait.
Yeah.
Favorite Thriller song. Favorite song off the album, because that album is full of bangers.
Well, yeah, first of all, every track. If you skip on Thriller, then you have done something wrong. There's 9 tracks, and 9 tracks heavy. Billie Jean is probably, you know what? Want to be starting something because it's just the one that introduces everything. A lot of people will say Thriller. A lot of people will say Billie Jean. Billie Jean is probably my second favorite, but Want to be starting something, like, I can sing that all day. I was playing it in my car earlier because that's kind of my thing as I roll around my birthday.
See, I thought I was going to fool you. I thought you were going to go with Thriller or Billie Jean. Want to be starting something is also my favorite song off that track. That album is awesome. The banger.
It just starts like that. You're like, wait, is there more? Yeah, there's more.
Yeah,
Bessie Jones, genius. Jason, the funny thing is I got an early birthday present. I think a lot of people got a nice little Thanksgiving treat.
Oh boy.
Ladies and gentlemen, I say this to you with all sincerity. There is a football game on Saturday night. It is the ACC championship game, and your Duke Blue Devils are playing in it. We're going to go through how that happened. But first, let's talk about the first step that was in that process. Jason.
Well, I was going to say, if I told you 2-3 years ago that Duke fans would be glued to their TVs at midnight on Thanksgiving weekend watching SMU and Cal with a trip to the ACC championship on the line, you would have wondered what alternate universe you were living in. I mean,
I've never rooted for Cal harder. I'll say that.
It was crazy time and unbelievable that the number of dominoes that had to fall just right for this to happen, but they fell, and now we are playing for the title.
Now, it's funny because I want to lead into this by saying, first of all, we beat Wake Forest 49-32. We're going to talk about that game in just a second. But let's get to how we got to this point. Entering the day, we had a few scenarios that had Duke going into the ACC championship game, backing their way into however you want to call it. But we needed Miami to beat Pitt in the noon game. They did that. We then needed to beat Wake Forest. We did that. And then, as you mentioned, Jason, in the late games, the simplest path was for Cal to beat SMU. If they had done that, we were in. It was basically down to a point because Virginia Tech lost to Virginia. UNC got smoked by NC State. So that game was, if SMU wins, they're in. If SMU loses, we're in. Cal was up 31-14, 2 minutes into the fourth quarter. They let SMU storm all the way back to take the lead late in the game. Cal then takes the ensuing kickoff, goes down the field in like 90 seconds to score a touchdown.
It's too fast. They scored too fast.
Yeah, it's 43 seconds left. SMU then got into long field goal range, and they had a field goal, a 52-yarder, and they missed it as time expired.
They missed it
Again,
bad. Wait. They missed it bad.
they missed it by that much. I mean, it was as soon as he kicked it, I started like the muffled screaming that
Yeah.
you do in an apartment building at midnight. But that was me. I was celebrating that like it was my own team. But Jason, let's get into the actual game because for any of that to happen, we needed to beat Wake Forest and beat them. We did. We win the state championship. Manny Diaz, by the way, 6-0 against teams from North Carolina in his 2 seasons at Duke. Which I love. I love the fact that they have this trophy and that for 2 years we have held it. And again, it was a game where we started out with the lead. Wake Forest kind of caught up right before halftime, and then the second half, Jason, it was all Duke almost.
Well, someone described it. Jim Sumner in his column. We've mentioned to folks many times. Subscribe to Jim Sumner's Substack. You're making a mistake if you're not subscribed to what Jim Sumner's putting out there about Duke athletics. I think he said someone at the press conference, maybe it was Manny Diaz, I believe, described it as an accordion game. Duke would stretch it out, and then Wake would pull it back, and then Duke would stretch it out, and Wake would pull it back. It was that kind of contest, but that's more fun than if it was like literally Wake retaking the lead. Like Wake could get back within 7 or 3, and then Duke would pull it out again to like 14, 17 and stuff like that. So I don't know that I ever felt super in danger of Duke losing this contest. The Duke offense was clicking, and the story of the game was Wake's mistakes. I mean, Wake has 5 fumbles on the game. They lose 3 of them to Duke. Duke also got an interception. Duke made 0 turnovers. Donald, we say it all the time. When we play clean, when we don't make turnovers, when we don't make foolish penalties and things like that, yeah, Duke can play with anybody. We put up 49 points against a really good defense. I mean, like I'm telling you, so Wake had given up 14 points or less in 5 of their past 6 games. Dwell on that for a second. In their past 3 games, Wake had given up a total, all 3 games combined, a total of 35 points. Duke scored 49 against them. And I just thought there were so many guys who had big games, big moments. We got, you and I talked in the preview, Donald. Duke needed to get the good Darian Mensah back. Not that Darian Mensah has been bad lately, but since the Clemson game, like the number of yards per game and the completion percentages, all those things have been down, and that all ticked back up in this game. And if Duke has the good Darian Mensah, if Duke doesn't make turnovers, we have an excellent chance to beat Virginia and just cause absolute chaos. And the last couple things I wanted to mention about this game, and then I'll let you get in. First of all, Senior Day. That means saying goodbye to guys like Samir Hagans, Chandler Rivers, Anderson Castle, our beloved short yardage back. All 3 of those guys had really, really great games. Samir Hagans, that 80-yard return. Manny Diaz described that as a momentum snatcher. I like that term. And then the last thing is Cade Reynoldsson. That fake punt.
Fake kicks, man. Fake kicks the last couple of weeks.
The best thing about the Cade Reynoldsson fake punt is that it was not called by the sidelines. It was not a design play. If you go back and watch the play, you can see the Duke guys running downfield. They're not blocking. They have no idea that Cade Reynoldsson is running behind them.
Running behind them.
It's that if you've watched all season, the way Cade takes his punts, he takes a couple steps sort of to the side. That's just the way he does it every time. He's, I guess, it's like an Aussie style kicker.
Rugby style is what they call it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And as he took a couple steps, he just looked up and was like, there's no one else over here. I'm all by myself. I'll just keep running and see what happens. 30 yards later, what happened was Duke kept the ball. Now, we didn't score on that, which sucks. I was like, oh, if we'd scored off that drive. But we did get to eat extra clock at a time when Duke was in the lead, and eating clock was super important. But that was a glorious, such a fun Senior Day game, and we had no idea at the time that it was going to lead to Duke playing for the ACC title.
I will tell you, the Cade Reynoldsson play, it looked like he's not most kickers aren't big, right? They're not tall, they're not wide, so he's a little shorter than the rest of his line. it just looked like he went to the side to see what was going on and see why everybody was running so fast. And they saw the ice cream truck. And when you're 15 steps beyond your friends, you don't want them to raid the ice cream truck before you get there. So that's what he took off running. He had the football in his hand, and nobody went after him. So he thought it was cool until he realized that it wasn't an ice cream truck, that he was on a football field, and he had gotten the first down. So I again, these plays, that was a heads up play. You mentioned correctly, like last week was a design play. That was Manny Diaz saying, "Screw it, let's go for it." Right. This was one where he read the defense, and the defense said, "Take all this free real estate," and he said, "With pleasure." But again, it was a heads up play. Guys making smart decisions with the football. Again, Darian Mensah, all his stats ticked up. The timing had been off a little bit the last couple of weeks, but it felt back for the most part. And I just love how they closed that out because, as you mentioned, at the time, they were just playing just to play, right? They were playing to become 7-5, to win the state championship, keep hold of that state championship trophy that they have now. And then, Jason, I don't know if you saw the social media, but they had a video where the post game talk, Manny Diaz was kind of like, "Hey, it's not going to happen. We're not going to talk about but it could. So stay by your phones." And everything comes just I called it everyone called it a doomsday scenario that Duke would make it. I called it a Duke's Day scenario because it means that we're playing football one more week.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment, because first of all, I want to dispel this notion that I've heard from a lot of people who are like, Duke didn't play any team with a winning record in the ACC. Duke played this really soft ACC schedule. And one of our listeners, Craig Fratrick, went ahead, did like a little bit of analysis. He used a little bit of Google Gemini, a little bit of AI to dive into all the ACC schedules and the analysis of them. And what he discovered was, if you take out the games where Duke won, because obviously games where Duke wins or Duke loses, that's not the strength of the opponent. That's the strength of Duke, presumably. So take out the 6-2 record that Duke has in the ACC. Look at all those other ACC teams that Duke played and what their record was in the conference. It's pretty good. Like, Duke played a ton of teams that went 4-4 in the ACC. We played like virtually the entire middle of the conference: Cal, Clemson, Wake, NC State. All these teams that finished the ACC regular season at 4-4, they all lost to Duke. So presumably against the rest of the ACC, they were all 4-3. If you stack up, Craig did this. If you stack up Duke's record, Duke's opponents' records, I should say, minus the Duke games, and you compare it to the rest of the ACC, Duke is like one of the top 3 or 4 toughest schedules in the conference. So, yeah, we didn't play Miami. Yeah, we didn't play Louisville. Yeah, we didn't play SMU. Sorry, but we did play good ACC opponents, and we beat 6 out of 8 of those ACC opponents. This notion that Duke doesn't belong in the ACC championship game because our schedule wasn't tough enough is not borne out by the numbers.
Well, to piggyback on that, it's not our fault either. It's not like we're ducking these teams. We don't schedule the ACC schedule, right? And it's been set for the next 5 years. So we know who we're playing. It's just a matter of when these dates are going to happen. So we knew we were going to California. We knew we weren't playing Miami. We knew we were getting Clemson, which was supposed to be a good team, but Clemson faltered this year. Right. We knew we were supposed to get, Syracuse, who was supposed to be a rebounding team. They faltered a little bit down the stretch. And if you think about, Jason, like, again, the ACC is talking about these tiebreakers. People are saying, "Oh, the tiebreakers aren't fair." Well, first of all, the tiebreakers have been set all year. We knew what the tiebreakers are going to be, and we still needed 5 of them to roll in our favor, including us winning. Miami, thanks a lot. You helped us by winning, right? If Miami had lost the thing, yeah, they would have been out of the playoff, but so would we, right? Maybe someone else would have backed in and would have had a chance for the ACC. But again, all these teams ended up playing to win, and they did. All these scenarios were set up well in advance. And funny enough, Jason, common opponents, that's a big thing that they were talking about. Miami and Duke had 2 teams that each of them faced: Syracuse and NC State. Keep in mind, they're both in the same conference, right? So again, I go back to the point of, if the ACC doesn't like their own rules, they don't like their own tiebreakers, they don't like their own schedule, then change it. Because, look, if we had gone undefeated, nobody would have had a problem with it. We're not counting NC State beating Virginia in the non-conference
Exactly.
portion of the schedule, right? So there's that quirk as well. They're in this championship game, and nobody's talking about the fact that they had an additional loss in conference that's not being counted. So if they are 6-2 along with everybody else, then I believe it's Miami that would be in this thing. It wouldn't even be us. It's not even us they should be worried about. It's the fact that Virginia has an extra loss on their record that's not being counted. That would have put them in this championship game. So yeah, there's a lot of scenarios here, but I will say this also. The last thing I will say, Jason, we've talked about the people who are upset that we are in this thing. There's now this scenario that we've heard about for maybe the last couple of months, that if Duke wins this thing with 5 losses, that the ACC will be left out of the college football playoff in favor of 2 group of 5 teams, particularly Tulane and JMU. Of course, we lost to Tulane earlier in the year.
Right.
But hey, Jason, I go back to the fact that on Saturday, we needed a bunch of stuff to happen to even get in this position. And it did. Like, I feel like Doctor Strange at Endgame with the, one scenario at Iron Man, right? We have a game on Saturday night. It's the ACC championship game. We have a great chance to win this game. Like, we could probably learn from what we exhibited against Virginia earlier. And if you recall, that was a game where we had a lot of mistakes. As you mentioned, Chase, we had a lot of mistakes, turnovers. That cost us. It wasn't that UVA was that much better than us. We have a chance to win that game. If after that, we take that thing to the Military Bowl, I don't care. Because you know what? We'll still have the trophy on display at Navy Memorial Stadium if that's what happens. If they want to take us in the playoff, we'll be ready for that too. But I think what's important is, again, there's a football game on Saturday night at 8 p.m. in Charlotte. The Duke Blue Devils are on one side of that field, and they have a chance to win the conference championship. We should worry about that. And if the college football playoff wants to shrug their nose at that, let them, because they'll be shrugging their nose at, hopefully, the ACC champions.
Look, I want to get into, so first of all, really quick, I just want to mention next year, the ACC goes from an 8-game conference schedule to a 9-game conference schedule.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to fix a lot of the messiness that we see here. Just adding more games obviously creates, extra opportunities to separate the best teams from the teams that aren't quite as good. But then the other part of it is it just means more games against each other. Like, one of the weird things that happened here in the ACC is that you only play 8 games, but there are 18 teams in the conference. There's a whole more than half the conference, you don't even play them. And so there's all these quirks of how the schedule works out. So you get these teams at the top who haven't played each other, and we'll get less of that with even one extra game on the schedule.
Real quickly, and I also say, like, these scenarios that were playing out in the ACC, we were not the only conference that had a bunch of teams with their, next week in flux, right? The SEC, the Big 12, every major power conference had some scenarios in place where if one team wins and then there's this tiebreaker that comes into effect. So it's not just us.
So then the other thing I want to mention is this notion of if Duke wins, and I want to be clear, we're not looking past anything. The game against Virginia is, by no means is Duke a favorite or something like that. But if Duke wins, this question of does Duke get into the college football playoff as the fourth or the fifth, as a conference champion, because the college football playoff takes the top 5 conference champions. I think it is pretty clear that the winner of the Tulane North Texas game, the American Conference winner, that team will make the playoff. The only question is, does Virginia win from the ACC, or if it's Duke, does Duke go from the ACC, or does James Madison go? If James Madison beats Troy, does James Madison go ahead of Duke? And at the moment, the 10-1 James Madison Dukes are considered by the College Football Playoff Committee better than the Duke Blue Devils. So first of all, easiest path, Donald, you talked about, Dr. Strange and the one path. Easiest path is Duke beats Virginia, James Madison loses to Troy. If that happens, Duke's going to the playoff. We're going to be the 12th seed. We're probably going to be playing like Texas A&M. Can you imagine that matchup?
Yo. Yo.
That scenario is right there, baby. So if that happens, that's the easy path. The more difficult path is if James Madison beats Troy. But I want to tell you something about James Madison. I want you all to take a second and go and look at their schedule. Look at who James Madison has played this year to compile a very impressive 10-1 schedule. Their one loss was to Louisville, an ACC team that really, was only 500. They were only 4-4 in the conference. Not that good of an ACC team. James Madison lost to them by 14. So you're telling me the ACC champion should not go so that you can put in a team that lost to a middling ACC team by 14 points? But wait, there's more. Donald, you know who else James Madison beat? Nobody. No one of consequence. They have 10 wins. Their best win is against Old Dominion. They have played exactly one power conference team. That was Louisville, and they lost by 14 points. According to Sagarin, according to the Sagarin rankings, James Madison has played the 99th toughest schedule in the country. 99th. There are only 136 teams in the football bowl subdivision. 99th out of 136. They haven't played anyone. Yeah, they're 10-1. Congrats on being 10-1. You haven't played diddly squat, James Madison. I don't think there's an argument that gets 7-5. Well, I guess if Duke wins, 8-5 Duke ahead of 11-1 James Madison. But I'm telling you, if you put those two teams on a field against each other, if you stack up Duke's wins against James Madison's wins, it's pretty hard to look at James Madison and say that they're definitively better than the Blue Devils. They aren't. They just aren't.
And I think the interesting thing about it is the people who are kind of hyping that, they're same people who are hyping 5 or 6 SEC teams. You know why? Because they want to power 5 teams, or I'm sorry, group of 5 teams in the playoff. You know why? Because that probably gives 2 SEC teams an easier home game in that first round, as opposed to a Duke team. And yeah, like you mentioned, like no one's going to want to face a 5-loss team because they're going to hear the narratives if they end up losing that game. But I also say, again, all these scenarios, and people are assuming that Tulane or North Texas is going to win. They're assuming that James Madison is going to win. Liberty just got beat, and they were supposed to face JMU in this championship game this weekend. They lost. That's how Troy got in. So all these scenarios are one thing. There's a lot of football left to be played, and there's some teams that could fall. And there's the whole Lane Kiffin situation. Tulane is losing their coach. Memphis is losing their coach. So there's a lot of teams here who have some questions about whether or not they should be in this playoff. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about Virginia in Charlotte on Saturday for a chance of the ACC championship. After all that, again, if you want to take that on tour and you send us to the Military Bowl or the Fenway Bowl or the Pinstripe Bowl, bundle me up, baby. Let's go. But until then, we're gonna leave it on the football, and we're gonna leave it on the field in Charlotte and see where the chips fall and see if we can't beat Virginia. Again, that game's gonna be 8 p.m. We're gonna preview more later this week about that game. But let's take a quick break. On the other side, we will get to the basketball. We have a big basketball game coming up on Tuesday night in Cameron against the Florida Gators. We'll preview them after this.
Hey, the holidays are almost here, and if you have names still on your list, don't panic. Uncommon Goods makes holiday shopping stress-free and joyful. With thousands of one-of-a-kind gifts you can't find anywhere else, you'll discover presents that feel meaningful and personal, never rushed or last minute.
Uncommon Goods has something for everyone, from moms and dads to kids and teens, from book lovers and sports fans to foodies, mixologists, and gardeners. You'll find unforgettable gifts that are anything but ordinary. And perhaps most importantly, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. Every purchase is a chance to choose something remarkable and feel good about where your money goes.
Look, so don't wait. Make this holiday the year you give something truly unforgettable. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/DukeBB. That's uncommongoods.com/DukeBB and get 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary.
is the season for all your holiday favorites, like A Very Jonas Christmas Movie and Home Alone on Disney+.
Should I burn down the joint? I don't think so.
Then Hulu has National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
We're all in for a very big Christmas treat.
All of these and more streaming this holiday season. And right now, save big with our special Black Friday offer. Bundle Disney Plus and Hulu for just $4.99 a month for 1 year. Savings compared to current regular monthly price. Ends 12/1. Offer for ad-supported Disney Plus Hulu bundle only. Then $12.99 a month or then current regular monthly price. 18 plus terms apply.
We're only a few weeks in, and the season is already wild. Stars are going off, freshmen are making noise, and the action doesn't stop. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is where you can get in on all of it for pro and college basketball.
Yeah, and don't forget the holiday tournaments and the Emirates NBA Cup. Big moments, big matchups, and a whole lot on the line. Don't miss out. Jump in and bet on the action today.
So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code DUKEBB. That's code DUKEBB. Bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
We're back, and we shift our attention to the hard court. Florida Gators are coming to town on Tuesday night as part of the ACC SEC Challenge. We're going to talk more about the challenge after our preview, but first, Jason, let's get into our preview of the Florida Gators. And I first start with a preview of, if you're going to the game, apparently, Duke wants you to wear black. It is a blackout on Tuesday. Now, whether that means that the team is going to be wearing black in Cameron, I don't know for the life of me if they've done that before. I know they've worn some different colors before in Cameron, but traditionally they wear white or gray, or they've worn blue in Cameron before. I don't know that they've worn black yet, but they're asking for a blackout. So if you're going to the game, maybe if you're watching the game where you're at, wear a black Duke shirt on Tuesday to support the Blue Devils against the Florida Gators. Let's talk about the Florida Gators. 5-2 on the year. They opened with a 93-87 loss to Arizona in Las Vegas. It was kind of one of those, the very first night of college basketball, right when we were playing Texas. They've beaten North Florida by 40. They beat FSU in a very, very close game. They only won by 2 against Florida State. They won by 14 against Miami, and then they came back with an 80-45 win over Merrimack. They then went to their conference their early season tournament, which was in San Diego. Their first game, they played TCU, where they lost 84-80. They rebounded with a 12-point win over Providence. So, Jason, as I turn it to you for the metrics, this is a team that the metrics all think are the same. Ken Pom, Bart Torvik, Evan Mia all ranked them 16th. They're 10th in the AP. They're 8th in the coaches. They're still the defending champions, and this is still a very, very tough team coming to Cameron.
Yeah, and so far it has been, you described, the loss to TCU especially, it has been a disappointing season for the Florida Gators. They started out the season, as like 1, 2, 3, something like that in all the rankings, and you said it, in the advanced metrics, they're down to 16. They may currently still be in the top 10, but that's because we haven't factored in the TCU loss yet. When the real human polls come out tomorrow, they will be outside of the top 10. So This had been hyped as a huge matchup for Duke. It still is the defending national champs, and Florida is still a very, very impressive team, and this would be an important win for Duke at home. And it's going to be a great home game, a really exciting home game. We one of the things I really like about the ACC SEC Challenge is that you play these games in these home arenas. It's just there's just more energy than when you go to a neutral floor. All right, so let me get into some of the advanced metrics about this Florida team. They are they are really good on defense. 10th best defensive team in the country, according to Ken Pomeroy. They don't turn teams over all that much, but they do a great job of guarding you and making you take difficult shots. Teams only hit 26% of their three-pointers against Florida. 26%. Three-pointers are a huge part of the Duke attack. If Duke is only hitting 1 out of every 4 three-pointers, it is going to be really tough to beat this Florida team. Teams only hit 44% of their two-point field goals. Duke is one of the best two-point field goal teams in the country. Big Pat Duncan, dunking on teams. Cameron Boozer getting inside in the lane and finishing. Duke is great at two-point field goals. Florida, only 44% of twos. That is what Florida forces you to do. They force you to go one-on-one. They don't allow you to make good passes. Florida has one of the 20 lowest assist rates on defense in the country. They stifle your three-point opportunities. They don't let you shoot a lot from three. They don't let you hit a lot of threes. And perhaps most importantly about this Florida club, when you miss a shot, they do not give up offensive rebounds. Florida is a great rebounding team. When I get into the players, you're going to hear more about this. But just 23% of missed shots on the defensive end get offensive rebounded. They are the 22nd best defensive rebounding team in the country. They had a game against Florida State earlier. You mentioned this, where Florida only won by 2 points against Florida State. In that game, just look at the rebounding stats of that game, Donald. Florida had 41 defensive rebounds. Florida State had just 8 offensive rebounds. What are we? I mean, those are absurd numbers.
That's like the law of averages says that, you could basically throw the ball at the rim like 50 times and get it like 10. They only got 8.
Yeah. They took 49 shots, 49 misses, I should say. They only got 8 offensive rebounds. Yeah, you'd think just some dude fumbling the ball away and you grab it would happen more often than that. But that is how good Florida is on the boards. Their domination of the glass, by the way, extends to the other end of the floor. They grab almost 42% of their offensive rebounding opportunities. They're the 8th best offensive rebounding team in the country. Oh boy, we got to be careful on the boards. They are just, I checked, Donald. I went through Duke's entire schedule. I looked at, and I know the season's only like 7, 8, 9 games old for most of these teams, so things can change. But at this moment, Florida is the best rebounding team that Duke will face all year. Michigan State is we faced Michigan State right after we play Florida. Michigan State is very, very close, but Florida is just a little bit better. But so this will be, at least at the moment, the most difficult test that Duke will face on the boards all year. One of the 20 best defensive rebounding teams, one of the top 8 offensive rebounding teams in the land is this Florida Gators club. Let me talk a little bit more about the offense super quick. Because of that super high offensive rebounding rate, they have the 23rd best offense in the country, but they are a terrible, lousy three-point shooting team. They're hitting just 27.7% from three. That is not good. They also turn the ball over a lot. They have the 254th worst turnover percentage on offense in the country. That is, for a team as good as Florida, a team with a top 25 offense, to be 254th in turnover percentage is shocking. They do a good job of getting to the free throw line. They're a good 2-point field goal team. They hit close to 57% of their twos. That's really good percentage. And as a reminder, one of the things that Duke does perhaps better than anything else on defense is our 2-point field goal defense. Like I said, Florida hits 57% of their twos. Duke holds opponents to less than 40% of their twos. That will be a huge key in this contest. Can Florida get good shots in the lane and, around the lane inside that they finish well, or can Duke prevent them from getting those shots? Can Duke have them miss those shots? Because without 2-point field goals, at a high percentage, Florida just doesn't appear to have the horses to be able to create enough offense to keep up with Duke.
Yeah, and you mentioned the turnovers, and it's kind of astounding how much they turn the ball over. That's been one of the big deals for them earlier this year against Arizona. They had 15 turnovers. Against TCU, they had 19. Those are the 2 losses.
Wow, those are big. 19 turnovers is a lot.
Look, against Florida State, that game where they almost lost, they had 18, and then a few days later against Miami, they had 16. So they have games where they really don't take care of the basketball, and that's been really affecting them in everything else of their game.
All right, so let me get to the players. You're talking about the turnovers. I'm going to get to that in a second, but I'm going to start with the rebounding and the big men. The reason that Florida is so dominant on the boards is that they are a very tall team. Newsflash, being tall That's a big help when you're rebounding. Breaking news on the DBR podcast. Florida is the 24th tallest team in the country, according to Ken Pomeroy. By the way, they're not super deep. I'm betting we're going to see 7, maybe 8 guys. The 8th guy plays maybe like 6 to 8 minutes in this game. They're not going to go super deep. But the reason they're so good, the reason that they get so many rebounds is they have 2 forwards and a center who played key roles on the championship Florida team last year. Let's not forget, this Florida club is the defending national champions. They took the trophy that I think everyone thought Duke was going to win. And they brought back their three of their primary front court players. 2 of them are forwards, Thomas Haw and Alex Condon. Haw was he was a reserve last year, and so he's seen his minutes and his usage rate rise this year as he's moved into a starter's job. He's their leading scorer at 18 points per game, close to 8 rebounds per game. You're going to hear me continue to talk about guys who average like 8, 9, 10, 11 rebounds per game. It's unbelievable. By the way, they play through Thomas Haw a lot. He gets around 3 assists per game. He's very physically strong. He's 6'9", 220, good quickness, plays with real, just a nonstop motor, just passionate about his basketball. Not a great outside shooter. He's hitting right around 30% on the season, but he is willing to step out and take that shot. And because he plays so hard, he does a good job of getting to the free throw line. You got to be careful. I think Nick Hamenia, Dame Sarr are going to primarily be matched up with Thomas Haw. They got to be careful not to get into foul trouble because he will get to the free throw line. Alex Condon is probably the best player on this team. He had some real NBA stock. Like, he could have been a late first-round draft pick had he stayed in the draft. He chose to come back to Florida. He got a very nice NIL payday. Don't worry. He's doing just fine. And he's hoping to, play his way into a better draft spot next year. And so far, that plan is working out pretty nicely for him. He's 6'11", maybe even 7 feet, checks in close to 230 pounds. Despite that size, really nice mobility, really good finishing skills in the post, quick feet. He has good footwork in the post. If you take your eye off of him for a moment, he will rim run on you and put down a dunk, and that's just a problem. He's a nice rim protector. He'll get some block shots. Really strong rebounder, getting close to 9 rebounds per game. And like Thomas Haw, he's a very willing passer. When he sees the opportunity, he's averaging more than 3.5 assists per game. So their 2 forwards are averaging better than 6.5 assists per game between the 2 of them. That tells you how much Florida is putting the ball in these 2 guys' hands to create the opportunities for the rest of the team. And by the way, I think Alex Condon will probably be the guy matched up with Cameron Boozer. Condon will have a little bit of a size advantage and a little bit of a strength advantage. I'm not sure. Cam's not going to be able to push him around the way Cam sometimes pushes other guys around. But Condon sometimes does get in foul trouble, and that could be a huge key to this game. One more big man to talk about. That is the man in the middle, the center, Ruben Chindulu. Chindulu is 6'10", 265 pounds. Donald, that's a large human being. 6'10", 265. But are you ready for the number? This is going to blow your mind. He has a 7'8" wingspan.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa! Oh, my goodness. Yeah, my man is a beast on the inside. He's freakish. He averages around 11 points per game, close to 11 rebounds per game. Now, those points are not him, stepping outside and shooting threes. It's not him putting on great post moves. It's him rim running, him getting rebounds and sticking them back. He's going to dunk on you. That's what Ruben Chindulu is going to do. By the way, he declared for the NBA draft a year ago. Looked like he was about going to be a mid-second rounder, so he came back. He's going to be a big load for Big Pat to take care of on the inside.
I will say with Chindulu, the 7'8" wingspan you think is just otherworldly. I just want to know, because I'm not sure if you're going to mention him, that if you put him on, if you turned it on the ground, it would still be 1 inch shorter than Olivier Rioux, their center, who's on the end of the bench, the tallest player to ever play college basketball, who stands 7'9". So at the very least, those of you who go to Cameron are going to see history. Easily the tallest player to ever walk into Cameron Indoor Stadium onto the court. He could dunk literally flat-footed, which is incredible. He just is not ready for the speed and physicality of college basketball. I say college football. We're still football.
He's a lot of fun to watch in the layup line, but yeah, he's not going to get it. He will not be playing in this. I can't imagine he'll be playing in this game unless the game is an absolute blowout one way or the other. All right, so after Donald, after I described those big men, you may be thinking, I thought you said Florida had lost 2 games this year. How exactly did they lose 2 games with three future NBA? Let's be clear. All 3 of those guys are going to be playing in the association at some point in the future, at their forwards and center. Well, it's because Florida spent a lot of money in the transfer portal to bring in 2 absolute star, big-time transfer guards, and it ain't working out so far. It is not working out very well at all. The biggest name among them is Boogie Fland. You may recall him last year. He was a 5-star freshman. Everyone assumed he'd be one and done, but he really struggled at Arkansas. The team got off to a terrible start in the SEC, and he got hurt. And suddenly Arkansas started playing better after he got hurt. That's not a good sign for a player when, like, oh, we suck. Oh, you're not here and we're good? That's bad. He missed 15 games to Boogie Fland. And when he came back for the NCAA tournament, he had a smaller role. The team had evolved without him. It just wasn't working out. At that point, it was really impossible for him to try to apply for the NBA draft. And so he decided to enter the transfer portal instead. He took a pretty big payday. His role is supposed to be to replace Walter Clayton, who was, one of the top 3 players in college basketball a year ago and is playing very nicely in the NBA now. But Boogie Fland's only averaging 12 points per game. He's hitting just 24% from 3. That is not a good 3-point percentage. And his assist numbers, he had the ball in his hands more when he was at Arkansas. His assist numbers have been cut in half from what they were at Arkansas, but his turnover numbers are the same. That's not a good sign. The guy next to him, the guy who's playing point guard for them, is a dude named Xavier Lee. And he's a transfer from Princeton. He was kind of linked to Duke. There was some talk when he entered the transfer portal that Duke might be interested in him. I'm not sure he never took a visit. I don't know if it ever got beyond, like, maybe, sending messages back and forth or something like that. But I mean, Xavier Lee, if you're someone who really follows Duke recruiting, that's a name that you've probably heard before a little bit. When he was at Princeton, and by the way, Jack Scott on Duke obviously knows Xavier Lee very, very well. They were teammates for few years probably. When Xavier Lee was at Princeton, he was a reliable 17-point per game scorer with like 5 assists per game, hit close to 37% from 3. That's why he was a big-time transfer portal kind of guy. At Florida, his numbers are way down. From 17 points per game, he's averaging just 9 points per game at Florida. Remember I said 37% from 3? At Florida, he's at 21%. I mean, he cannot hit the broadside of a barn. And it's okay if you're not hitting your threes, but you can't not hit your threes and take a lot of threes. He's averaging 7 3-pointers a game. He's taking 7 3-point attempts a game, and he's basically hitting like 1, maybe 2 of them. That is a problem for Florida. Xavier Lee just has to be better for them to have much of a chance in this game. And last thing I just want to mention super quick, one guy I want folks to keep an eye on. I said Florida doesn't go super deep. When they take Boogie Fland and Xavier Lee out of the game, the guy they bring in is a wing from Slovenia, Urban Klavzar. He didn't play a lot last year for Florida, but he's averaging more than 20 minutes per game this season. He's sort of their primary backcourt sub, and he's their major 3-point threat. He's hitting better than 38% from 3. He's had 2 games this year, including the game against Miami, where he hit 4 or more 3-pointers. If Duke is successful at all on offense in this game and Florida's having trouble keeping up, the guy to watch out for is Klavzar, is this wing, because he's been the one guy on Florida who's been a reliable 3-point shooter for them this season.
Going back to Xavier Lee, if you recall, it wasn't just Duke that was going after him. He was arguably the most coveted guard in the transfer portal in that first early part of the transfer portal season, if you will. And him going to Florida was a big deal. And Boogie Fland going to Florida was a big deal. And right after they won that championship, to get Alex Condon back and to get those 2 guys, a lot of people were saying, well, that, just go ahead and mail in next year too, because Florida's going to be the best team in college basketball. Their timing is off. It feels like, their production is down, but also it just feels like they've been off a little bit, and really it's manifesting itself in the form of turnovers. So as we go to the things to watch, the first thing, as I mentioned in the metrics, Jason, is force turnovers. Allow them to get sloppy, because when they get sloppy, they get discombobulated very quickly and things unravel for them quickly. I've seen, I saw that game against Arizona, And they actually had a lead in that game. And then all of a sudden, they just started turning the ball over. It felt like every single possession, they weren't getting a shot off because they were giving the ball to Arizona. Arizona was making them pay. And Code Pete, hopefully we don't have to hear about him down the line. But man, he introduced himself to the national stage with that game because he was incredible at taking advantage of those turnovers. If we get them into a game where they're sloppy with the basketball and we are taking care of the basketball, that is going to bode well for Duke, especially in Cameron, where, as we know, to borrow from Manny Diaz, you can snatch momentum very quickly, right? With a patented Duke run in Cameron, with the crazies around you, those turnovers, the basketball feels heavier. Those turnovers become more and more important, and they could be the difference in this game. I think also, because of the fact that you mentioned the two guards, the guys who are going to try to get the ball into those three big men, tough on the ball defense is going to really stifle them. Tough on the ball defense. We've seen some of that before, but I'm thinking back to that game last year against Auburn, where, again, another team came into Cameron. It was a real tough game, and we had to try and stop the ball handlers. And who did John Shire, what did he do? He started Sion James that game, who provided that on-the-ball defense that we needed. Caleb Foster went to the bench that game, but Caleb Foster has become a better defender since then. I think this is the game for him to really to take out those guards and make it where they have a terrible night. If they have a terrible night, it's going to trickle down to the rest of it, because the other guys like Alex Condon, he's not a guy like Cooper Flagg who's going to bring the ball up on possessions. They want the ball in the hands of their guards to get to their big men. And if you can't get the ball to them, they're going to have a real problem with scoring on the inside. The final thing, you mentioned rebounding, so I'm not going to really go into that. But I will say this. You mentioned the interior defense that Florida possesses. What has been one of those things that's been a trend, at least in the early season. We've kind of gotten rid of it against Arkansas, but it's the bunnies. Finish them. When you get it inside, finish it. You're not going to get a lot of opportunities, and you don't want to leave with 0 points when you're shooting from inside of 5 feet. Cameron Boozer, Pat Gongba, Malik Brown, Caleb Foster going to the rack. Finish those bunnies, because if you can get those in, that is, again, all we're trying to do is bring a little bit more pressure to them, because once they get pressure, Florida so far this season has wilted. It's unlike them. That's not what they were doing last year. This year they are wilting under that pressure, especially when they get a deficit and they're trying to make it up in one possession and they throw the ball away. So those are my biggest takeaways, Jason. And I mean, I think this game, I don't know, I didn't see what Ken Pom had it, but this seems like it's going to be one of the tougher games of the season. But it's definitely one where Duke can make themselves, basically insert themselves into the, oh yeah, Duke's back conversation, right? Because there's still some people who are like, oh, they really haven't, they've played some teams that are kind of down, they're not really playing well this year. Florida's still the defending national champions. Florida's a team that we thought we would see in that championship game. And this is the game where we are going to say, hey, look, we're still here. We're not going anywhere. And when you talk about those teams that are going to be hopefully in Indianapolis, we're going to be one of them, because this is the start of, the middle of this long stretch that we have against some really tough teams.
Yeah, you asked what Ken Pomeroy projects that Duke wins this game by 8 points. A healthy percentage of that, probably 3.5 points or so of that is the fact that it's being played in Cameron. I will say one of the keys to the game, in my opinion, is the fact that we're in Cameron probably means that guys like Darren Harris, guys like Nick Hamenia, guys like Dame Sarr feel more comfortable with where they're going to be shooting the ball. I mean, inherently, they know that floor, they know that court, they know every bounce that happens on that floor. And those are three guys who, if Duke's able to get them more involved in the offense, that's a big, big problem for Florida. I kind of wonder, you mentioned the whole Sion James, Caleb Foster thing a year ago. In the last game, Nick Hamenia played more than Dame Sarr did, and played way, way better than Dame Sarr did. Now, I'm not saying that I have any intel or any reason to believe that John Shire is going to make a change. But if John Shire makes a change and Nick Hamenia moves into the starting lineup, I won't be shocked either, based on what we saw against Arkansas. And Florida, like Arkansas, is A big team, very athletic, a really good SEC team with experienced players. I'm going to be very interested in seeing that Dame Sarr, Nick Homenia minutes count to see which one of those guys is. The nice thing is, Shire can wait and see which one of them is playing better and figure things out there. Yeah, good problems to have. Hey, can we talk about the rest of the ACC SEC Challenge really quick?
Yes, real quick, but I just want to say one final note about this game. It's not really a thing to watch, but I would love for it to happen. Hey, Slim, if you want to go for 18 in the first half again of this game, we're happy. We're happy for you to do so. I think this is the time that he broke out with that 18-point outburst against Auburn. Would love to do something, or not just him. Anyone can have a similar outburst against Florida and really set the tone. This is, again, we're kind of leading off, instead of being the nightcap of the second night of the ACC SEC Challenge, we're the first game or like the first set of games in this ACC SEC Challenge. So let's start out on a good note, and we can see what the rest of the ACC does, but let's take care of business in Cameron.
So we've talked, Donald, you and I, throughout the year, throughout the season. The season's still young, but we've been talking about, hey, the ACC looks better than last year, and that's good for Duke. It's just, it's more quad one opportunities for Duke, and it's just better for the conference in general. And we keep on we kept on talking about, you've mentioned it many times, the ACC SEC Challenge is an important marker for all of the college basketball world to see whether or not the ACC actually has improved. Can we compete with the big boys in a way, frankly, we didn't last year? Because as you recall, last year the challenge went to the SEC by a score of 14-2. Ugh. All right, so if you look on Ken Pomeroy and his computers and what they project, at the moment, they're projecting the SEC to win 13 out of 16 games in the challenge.
Yeah.
13-3. But I want to point out this. So, by the way, the 3 games that Pomeroy says the ACC should win is he thinks Duke beats Florida, Louisville beats Arkansas, and Wake Forest beats Oklahoma. Those are the only ACC teams that are favorites. But it's worth noting, like I said, 13 of the 16 games of the SEC, 6 of those 13 wins are projected to be one-possession games, where the SEC wins by 1, 2, or 3 points. And unlike a year ago, I think there's a very real path to the ACC to win the challenge. There's really only one game that the advanced metrics that Pomeroy's computer says will be a 10-point game. That's Vandy hosting SMU. And SMU isn't a bad team. It's just that Vandy's been playing really great yesterday. Vandy is a 11-point favorite at home in that game. That's the only game in the entire challenge that is projected to be more than a 10-point game. We're going to have a lot of close contests. And the ACC, if it performs the way it can, if it performs the way it's been performing so far in the preseason, has a realistic shot, a very realistic shot, 5, 7, 9, 10 wins or so in this contest. Wouldn't completely shock me, because I feel like the ACC is, we've had bad luck. The SEC's been overperforming so much. It's just the ACC's kind of due. What's your feeling on the challenge in general? And then I want to just really quick mention a couple of the games I'm interested in.
I think for me, the ACC needs to show more toughness. And I would hope, I don't know if they will, but I would hope that they would take some lessons from how we've approached the SEC teams we've played thus far, right? We played Tennessee on the road in the exhibition. We played Texas in the opener in Charlotte. We played Arkansas on Thanksgiving night in Chicago. And in all 3 of those games, it was mighty physical, Jason. We talked about it in the preview, and boy, did that pan out. That's what the SEC is about, and it feels like last year it was even more so. And the ACC teams did not know how to handle that. I think some of these teams in the ACC have gotten more physical. They've gotten bigger. They've gotten stronger. They have the understanding of what a physical game can bring and how to weather that storm and get a win. Now, I think also they're playing SEC teams. We just mentioned that Florida has played Miami and Florida State. Right, now, yes, it's the state championship, but like that is what, again, they're getting these tests so they know how to play when they end up playing the SEC team that they're going to play. So I am looking at this, and I don't know that I see 13-3. Do I see the ACC winning? I mean, I can be a homer and say yes, but I do think it's going to be closer. Whether it's the ACC gets 6 or maybe 7 wins, that would be pretty good. if we're losing like, what is it, 10-8 or 11-7 or something like that, that would be, or I'm sorry, 11-6. That would be great. We just need to get some of those one possession games, as you mentioned, and flip them. And we have some teams that are capable of doing it. They just have to do it. But I think the one thing that's against us is that some of these marquee matchups, a lot of them are ACC teams going on the road to the SEC, and that's what's really going to be the difficult one. If we can pluck a couple of those on the road, that can turn things around pretty quickly.
I'm so glad you pointed that out. One of the weird, crazy quirks of this, and I'm not saying there's no conspiracy or anything like that. It's just how it works.
That's just how they set it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Of the top 9 teams in the ACC in KenPom, the top half of the league, only 2 of them have home games. The other 7 are all on the road. It's just weird, and it could lead to like the ACC top teams looking bad and losing a lot, while the bottom of the ACC mostly hosts games. So you could have one of these weird quirks where the ACC teams that are actually in contention for NCAA tournament bids and the such, they take losses, while the bottom half of the conference take wins that don't necessarily matter all that much. It kind of sucks that it works out this way. I do want to mention a couple of games to keep an eye on. I'm really looking forward to seeing Louisville playing at Arkansas, because we just saw Arkansas a couple days ago. They are fresh in our mind, and Louisville appears to be the top contender next to Duke, and I'm really interested in seeing how that game works out. I'm also really interested in Clemson going to Alabama. There's such a great contrast in styles in that game. Mm-hmm. So Clemson wants to play slow. They're like, I think they're 299th in the country in pace or something like that, in pace of play. Clemson plays slow. Alabama, they're just racing up and down the floor. They're like, zoom. Bama plays fast, fast, fast. Clemson's also one of the best 3-point field goal defensive teams in the country. They allow their opponents to only hit like 26% from long range, while Alabama, like, their whole game is we're bombing from 3, boom, boom. We're just shooting from 3 left and right. That is such a the Clemson-Alabama game, you could not pick 2 teams that are more opposite each other for that contest. I'm going to definitely have a look at UNC and Kentucky. Carolina's playing at Kentucky. This is a Carolina club that looks like they're struggling without Seth Trimble. They just got beaten pretty badly by Michigan State the other day. But Kentucky, lest folks forget, a week ago at the Challenge, Kentucky was in total disarray. Michigan State blew them out of the building. I mean, their coach was talking like, he was despondent. So fascinating matchup between those 2 clubs that both seem to be a little bit in trouble. I should note that Kentucky played a couple like sub 300 KenPom, like really bad teams. While everyone else was playing good teams in holiday tournaments, Kentucky like played 2 lousy teams. They won both those games by more than 40 points. So I'm not sure if Kentucky got better against really bad teams or if they are still struggling. And then the last one I wanted to mention, Virginia's hosting Texas. Miami's hosting Ole Miss. Both Virginia and Miami are teams that are, they're top 50. They are like looking at, we've got a chance to make the NCAA tournament. Those games against Texas and Ole Miss, those are key resume building games. Those are the kind of teams you could be competing with on the bubble. And for Virginia and Miami, getting wins in those games would be really important to their NCAA tournament hopes that are still 4 months away.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at the KenPom, it's like very close, right? Like 38 versus 40, 46 versus 43. Those are like those early round, not necessarily first 4, but like, a 7-10 matchup in the NCAA tournament. That's what this feels like for some of these games. But you don't want to be the 10 seed and get blown out. You want to try and pluck a couple of those games. So that will do it. We will leave it here on this episode of the Duke Basketball Roundup. We will be back in your feeds after the Florida game at some point to recap all of that and get ready for a busy, busy weekend of football, of basketball. Congrats to Duke Women's Soccer, who is in the College Cup. That will be taking place this weekend. So it is championship weekend for Duke Athletics, and we will be a part of all of it. Get your headlines in, dbrpodcast@gmail.com after the Florida game is done. But until then, he's Jason. I'm Donald. We can't play Thriller on this, but we'll play the Duke band. They're going to take us out. Take us out.